But I'm here with another topic to talk to you guys about. As you guys tune in, please subscribe to my channel. Go ahead and hop in the comments, like it, share it, tell somebody about it. That's the quickest way we can get the messages out that I bring. I'm coming to you uh, just just uh just a time of reflection. I've been privileged over the years to be able to work in the church community, right? Most of you guys may know me as a worship leader. Some of you guys may not. But I am a person who has been in church my entire life, and within that span, I've been blessed with the opportunity to serve in the church, whether it was volunteering, whether it was operating in some leadership role, or whether it was working for a staff, like being on staff at a church. I've had the opportunity to work within the realms of clergy. And in that, there were so many lessons that I've learned. There were so many things that I discovered about the church community that most people don't understand, that most people misunderstand, and that most people don't talk about. And I'm kind of the person that likes to talk about these things. I catch a lot of heat for it. A lot of people feel some type of way about me because I talk about these things, but I feel like the things that I talk about is necessary not just to be on here exposing churches, exposing pastors, because I don't believe in that, but to shed light on situations within the church community that are problematic, that if we don't fix it, it will cause bigger issues, and really teaching people how to handle certain situations within the church community. I know a lot of people recently, a lot of people leaving churches, right? They feel some type of way about the church, and they want to leave the church. And the reason being, most times, in most cases, and I have to side with pastors and churches on this one. In most cases, the reason why people leave churches is because they didn't get their way. Uh, uh, some didn't go the way that they wanted to go, or they didn't get elevated to a position that they wanted, or they just felt some type of way about the pastor or about somebody, so they just left the church. And then leaving the church, they leave in a big uproar. They bash the church, they bash the pastor, they talk about everybody that go to the church, they disassociate with anybody that has any affiliation with that church, and we see this a lot. We see this a lot, and then a lot of people will go about claiming church hurt, which I wholeheartedly believe that there's a such thing as church hurt. But I also believe that a lot of what we're defining as church hurt is simply false expectations and us not getting our way. Now, in the same breath, there is a group of people who actually leave church and they have legitimate reasons for leaving church, whether it was outright sin within the leadership, whether it was a breach in confidentiality, right? You share something with someone and they shared it with everybody, and everybody start gossiping about your situation and this and that. Whether it was false teaching or not false teaching, wrong teaching, whether you just outgrew the ministry, right? It was nothing that the church did, you just outgrew it. A lot of people have legitimate reasons for leaving churches. But one of the things that I found recently is that a lot of people who leave churches, one of their reasons for leaving churches is that there was an unhealthy system in place. What I mean by that, unhealthy doesn't always mean sin, but what I mean by that is that the way that they did things wasn't conducive to the spiritual, social, emotional, mental health of people, right? The way that they run their church. Some people run their church like a business, right? Is really cutthroat, is really, do as I say, and if you don't do as I say, you can be gone. Some people just have poor people skills. They don't know how to manage people. They don't know how to interact with people. And sometimes it's just a matter of personalities clashing, and when you have that, I often say this to people all the time, right? The church is not perfect. Anytime you involve humans in anything, there's going to be dysfunction. There's going to be strife. There's going to be uh, uh, disagreement. There's going to be tension. Um, but not but and in the same breath, we have an obligation to recognize these unhealthy patterns and do something about it. So that's what this particular topic that I'll be talking about. That's what this episode is about. And I got my notes right here, so if you see me looking off to the left, that's what I'm looking at. And I have it titled "Challenging Unhealthy Church Systems." Now, the reason why I felt this necessary to do is because a lot of people challenge unhealthy church systems, and they have legitimate reasons to challenge these systems. But the problem comes in is how they challenge these systems. A lot of people think that, like, the moment I see something wrong, I'm supposed to cry loud and spare not and call out and they take that scripture out of context. But that's what they do. They want to shout on top of the mountaintop and say, hey, they doing it wrong over here. Everybody pay attention to them and look how wrong they doing. Nobody should be there. And that's not how we're supposed to handle unhealthy systems. Biblically speaking, that's not how we're supposed to handle disagreement and offense and different things like that. But, due to, social media, Twitter and Facebook, and we have opinions that we can voice anytime we want, we think that that's the proper way to translate how we feel, to communicate how we feel about a certain system, right? There are healthy ways to do this, and I'm going to run through a few of those ways that you could do it. Now, you may be watching this, and I may say something that you may disagree with. Listen, I welcome disagreement. I am not above having a conversation about something that you disagree with. I could be wrong. And I'm not above correction. At the same breath, I don't feel like that I'm right about everything, but this is something that I took the time out to study. So if you disagree with me, go ahead, disagree in the comments, and we can have a conversation there. This isn't an attack on any particular ministry. I don't believe in exposing, or I don't believe in calling out churches, calling out pastors, calling out ministers, because I think that it's counterproductive to the body of Christ. There are people who go to churches that I know that the leader is like, he's not a good leader. He's not a good pastor, whether it's the way that he leads, whether it's, them being manipulative and things like that. But that doesn't mean that God can't still move in that ministry. This is just because this is my opinion and from what I've seen. There are people who go to these churches and they still get to experience God. Now, it's not my job to pluck them up out of there. It's not my job to tell them, hey, don't listen to that pastor. I believe in God enough that if a person goes to a church where there may be some dysfunction, but God is dealing with them and they're growing, as they grow, God will reveal to them what they need to do and how they need to move. It's not my responsibility to tell you, hey, get up out of that situation or whatever. That's between you and God, and he'll deal with you that. So I don't believe in this. Ain't no bashing. If you think that I'm coming here to bash any church, to bash any people, that's not what this is. This is simply me communicating to you how we should deal with challenging unhealthy systems. Okay, so let's dive into this. All right. So my first point is signs of an unhealthy system in the church. Okay. These are the things that you need to look for before you go challenging. This is how you identify if the church has unhealthy systems. One of the main ways that you can identify an unhealthy system if there's no growth. And I'm not just talking about growth in membership. I'm talking about growth in a person coming in, and as they're in that church, do we see any progress in their development as a disciple? Do we see any progress in their development in their giftings? Do we see any progress in their development to becoming leaders, right? When you go to a church where the same people have been in the same position for 15, 20, 30 years, and nobody else has even come close to either taking over that role or being in a position of being discipled as to how to lead in this area, or even to the point where we not gonna let you fill this role, but we gonna disciple you and send you out to where you can do this somewhere else or whatever. That's one of the first signs of an unhealthy ministry and an unhealthy church, when there is no growth. Also, there's no progression. Things are the same, right? There's no there's a fight against change, right? We're not saying like the church needs to change its whole identity, but as time progresses, there are things that you do need to make adjustments to, and if you don't see any adjustments being made, right? Another sign of an unhealthy church is a lack of accountability, right? And this is okay. I don't know if I prefaced this already, but this is strictly for leadership, right? This is strictly for leadership. This is like, if you're a leader, right? If you go to a church and you serve at that church in a leadership role, whether you're the lead worship leader, whether you run a team, whether if you're in a leadership role, you are the person that I'm talking to right now. I'm not talking to your average Joe that just joined the church yesterday. I'm talking to people who are actually leaders in the church that have been serving in the church for some time. All right. So there's a lack of accountability. When things go wrong, there's nobody to hold anybody accountable for when things go wrong. Like the ball is constantly being dropped. There's mismanagement of funds, mismanagement of power. There's no accountability whatsoever within that leadership team. It's like a one-man show, and whatever the pastor say goes, and it's like everybody is a yes man. That's kind of a sign of an unhealthy church, because if there's no accountability, who do we go to when things go awry, right? When something happens within the leadership team, there's no correction, there's no discipleship, there's no way to address the issues at hand. There's no accountability whatsoever. People can do whatever they want to do and then come and operate the way that they want to operate, right? And there's no accountability there. So that's one of the signs of an unhealthy church. Favoritism, right? And I kind of talked about that already. Favoritism, when only certain people get to do things, right? And now I'm not talking to you who's on the worship team and you want to sing a solo so bad and they never give you a solo. Listen, if you can't sing, they not showing favoritism. They actually doing you a favor to avoid embarrassment, or not letting you sing. Though I'm not talking to you. If your heart is to, I want to be on platform for people to see me, you are not the person I'm talking to. I'm talking to people who genuinely have a heart to serve God, but they're being stifled by, oh, we like this person over you, or we prefer this person over you, right? That's what I'm talking to. I already talked about a misuse of power, a lack of transparency. You don't know what's going on in the church. You just there, and they, you done been in church for years, and then you come to church one day, and somebody that worked there don't work there no more. There's no explanation on why they don't work there, right? Uh, the church cut budgets, right? They cutting budgets, cutting down on spending and stuff, and you don't know what's going on. You thinking like, hey, yo, I thought we was good. Why we cutting back? There's no transparency, and I'm not saying you got to know all the details or whatever, but there's no transparency in what's going on. There's, especially when it's like an obvious rift within the church. There's an obvious tension within the church between leadership, and like nobody's talking about it, right? Nobody's like dealing with the issue, and you just see stuff being done, and you're like, yo, why are we doing it that way? Why we change this? And there's no open transparency about it. I served at a church before, where the church wasn't doing good financially. We had hit a rough spot, but instead of like being honest and transparent with the church and with the leaders and saying, hey, listen, financially we just ain't got it to do it, they found every excuse to blame why we can't spend this much money, right? We were hiring musicians, right? And instead of just telling the musicians, "Hey, yo, we can't afford y'all no more," right? It's out of our budget to be able to afford y'all. Instead of doing that, they would say things like, "Yeah, man, they heart not right, and we had to get rid of them because they weren't about the right." And look, these people were legit good people. There was nothing wrong with these people. We just couldn't afford them, right? So we would make up these things, or they would like put this heavy emphasis on tithing and offering all of a sudden, and like ridicule people and almost guilt trip them into giving, because the church wasn't doing good financially. And it's like, yo, just be real with the people, be transparent. Like, yo, financially, we just not in a good space right now, and we kind of need your guys' help, to help us get out of this whatever situation we in or whatever. Just be real and transparent, and like when there's no transparency, it can't be trusted. So this is a sign of an unhealthy church. Again, if you disagree with me, hey, let me know. Let me know. Uh, each of these things will manifest in your church, if it's unhealthy, right? Another big sign when it comes to teams specifically, because this is where my heart is. My heart is for people. My heart is for the volunteers. My heart is for the people that legit love God and just want to serve God, right? But when there's no, and I talked about this, when there's no development, when there's no growth, when there's no progression, and discipleship, that's a telltale sign that, that's a telltale sign that things are unhealthy. I'm sorry, something happened right there. But just from my experience, right? So I served on this worship team, right? And I'm just the type of person that I believe that if we serving God together, we should be, together, right? We should be like a family, right? I should know the people that I'm serving with. I should have some type of relationship. I ain't saying we got to be best friends. I'm not saying we got to be buddy buddy, but I should have some type of relationship with you to the extent of, I can speak, life into you. I can talk to you about the things of God. We can connect. It's something about when the team gels, when there's chemistry within the team, it helps the team run better, right? When people like each other, it helps the team run better, right? So I was in a situation where, there was no connectivity, right? We would just show up and sing on Sundays, show up and rehearse when we have rehearsed, and that was it. Nobody talked to each other, nobody communicated. And it was kind of like it got to the point where it felt like that we were only there for our gifts. Nobody was pouring into us. Nobody was, checking on us. Nobody was seeing how we was doing spiritually. There would be a time where, like, I had injured myself, right? And I was off the worship team for a minute because I was recovering from my injury. The first phone call that I had got from the church was like, "Hey, what's up, man? Haven't heard from you in a while. When you're going to be back on the worship team?" I'm like, "Yo, I just had a whole surgery. You ain't going to ask me how I'm doing?" So it was like situations like that is where I say, like, where it's not healthy, where the focus is, let's use these people, right? And when we can't use them no more, let's just replace them, right? Let's just, we treat people as if they're disposable. That's a sign of an unhealthy church. When you constantly see, every time you look up at the platform, there's somebody new on the platform, and not like new as in addition, is like new as in replacement. There's constantly somebody new. There's a new pastor on staff constantly. The old pastor is no longer there. There's a whole new worship team. It's almost like going season to season of Power Rangers. Every season they didn't change the characters or whatever. So a sign of an unhealthy church is just like, there's no consistency in your team. Like there's no development, there's no growth, there's no community. I believe wholeheartedly that churches thrive off community. And if there's no community, if there's no engagement, and there's no connectivity, you can't really thrive like that. People will get burnt out. There were situations where I've served in churches where there were people who would serve faithfully every Sunday, 2-3 services a Sunday, right? Serve every Sunday. They'll go strong for 6-7 months, and then they'll like kind of like phase out for a few weeks, right? And nobody checks on them. Nobody calls them, right? And then if a person say, "Hey, listen, I'm just overwhelmed," now their heart is in question. "Oh, you don't have the heart to serve God. You just, you this, and your heart's not right. You need to check your heart. And no, they don't have a heart issue. They tired. They need a breather. They need time to navigate life right now. They're constantly serving. And one thing that I say about serving, and I say this to volunteers all the time, people will come to me, man, I'm burnt out. I was like, hey, yo, just tell them you can't do it. The church will figure it out. You don't have to serve the church every single day and you're feeling empty. Go get filled up. You don't have to pour out all the time. And that's a problem. A lot of times, as being a former worship leader, as well as knowing other worship leaders and other people who volunteer in church, one of the problems, and this isn't a church problem, this is a we problem. One of our issues is that we serve nonstop and we never take the time to get poured into. And we expect the church to pour into us, which they should, but it's our responsibility to know when we're at that place of, hey, listen, I need some time. I need to be poured into. And we have to be vocal about that. And when we're not vocal about that, there's nothing that we can do that anybody can do about that. So this is just a side note. I encourage all people who serve at a church, take some time off, schedule that in, take a couple weeks off, spend time with your family, stay at home, relax, spend some time getting poured into, find you a mentor or somebody to speak some life into you and just, communicate that. But to get back to this whole unhealthy thing, right? 1 second, my notes kind of just went everywhere. But yeah, so that is a sign of an unhealthy church, right? These are all signs of unhealthy church: lack of accountability, resistance to change, favoritism, misuse of power, lack of transparency. These are all signs of an unhealthy church. Okay, so let's crack this open. Okay, so the next point I want to talk about is the biblical basis of challenging an unhealthy system in a church. Like I said before, a lot of people don't know how to do this, right? A lot of people think that the moment they see something wrong in the church, is their responsibility to cry aloud and tell the whole world how wrong this church is and how bad they're getting it wrong and all this other stuff. And that's not there's steps and there's order to doing things. And I believe that when we do things in order, several things can happen. The number one thing is we can come to a resolution, right? We can reconcile whatever the issue is, right? We can find peace, and we can find community and unity when we do things in order. Also, we get clarity when we do things in order. Clarity to know, hey, listen, I did all I was supposed to do, and there's nothing left here, and this doesn't serve me anymore. I can walk away from this situation knowing that I did everything I was supposed to do, right? So there's steps in doing these things. So one of the scripture reference, and I'm gonna go to it, give me a second, pulling it up. You guys, look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, we about to get into the Bible. Amen. Praise the Lord. If you can turn with me to James chapter 5, verse 19 and 20. Somebody get that for me in your reading. That's how them preachers be talking. But I'm gonna read it. It says, my brother and sister, if one of you should wander from the truth and someone should bring the person back, remember this: whoever turns a sinner from the error of their ways will be saved from death and covered over a multitude of sin. Okay, that's the NIV version. I'm gonna read the Message version because that's the version of the Bible that I that I like to read. I'm a hood. That's what I'd say. The Message Bible is the hood version of the Bible. Okay, so I'm gonna read James chapter 5, verses 19 and 20. It say, my dear friends, if you know some people who have wandered off from God's truth, don't write them off. Go after them, get them back, and you will have rescued precious lives from the destruction and the prevention an epidemic of wandering away from God. Okay, paraphrase that. If you know somebody that's wandering or straying away from, if you see an issue, right, that could potentially lead to sin, that can potentially lead to dysfunction, that can potentially lead to just a dissension in, the move of God, different things like that, do your job to get those people back on track, right? How do we get those people back on track? We don't slander them. right? We don't talk about them. We don't bash them. We approach them in love. I believe it, and as corny as this sounds, love is the answer to everything. A lot of people don't like that. They be like, oh man, here y'all go with that love stuff. And no, listen, God is love. Okay. And whether you like it or not, you being mean ain't gonna get a person to do right. You you t- I'm just telling it like it is. I'm just telling the truth. If your truth isn't led with love, it means nothing. Okay? You telling the truth from, and a lot of y'all be trying to tell the truth, but the motive behind you telling the truth is to make the person look stupid or to prove that you're right. That's pride. That's not love, and that's not solving a problem. So if your motive behind telling the truth is I'm about to prove to them that they wrong and I'm right, you out of pocket, player. You feel me? So you have to, in order to truly be effective, you have to allow love to lead you in your truth telling. Okay. Let's get back to my notes. Okay. So how do you go about doing this? How do you go about challenging how do you go about challenging sorry y'all, my notes all over the place. Do 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 do. How y'all doing out there? Man, I got lost quick. Good thing this live. Okay. How do you go about challenging an unhealthy system? Okay, so I'm gonna give y'all some steps. All right. First step. Okay, this is the first step to challenging an unhealthy system. Okay. Start with prayer and seek wisdom. Okay. The moment you see something, right, pray about it. Okay. The moment you see like the potential of something could lead to something, pray about it. Because a lot of times, maybe you just got the wrong perspective of the situation. Maybe you don't have all the information. Maybe you don't have everything. So pray about it before you go try to take action and seek wisdom. What do I mean by seek wisdom? That don't mean go to your girlfriend and say, hey, did you hear about so-and-so? That don't mean going to your home and like, hey man, did you see that? That means finding people who have a proven track record of wisdom and discernment, and go to them and say, hey, listen, I'm praying about this situation. What do you think of this? How should I go about handling this? And when you do things this way, this does several things. The first thing it does is it gives you a clear pathway or a clear plan on how to approach the situation. Okay. The next thing it does, it gives you a sense of like, okay, I've prayed about this. I have a little peace about this, and I've also sought out counsel on how to handle this. So I know that my heart is good and I know that my heart is right. Okay. So what you may find is that you got it all wrong. You got it. You got it twisted. You don't have the right information. So you don't even have to deal with the situation. But once you've prayed about it, address the situation privately and respectfully. Okay, a lot of y'all be trying to embarrass y'all pastors. Y'all be trying to embarrass people of God. Nah, go to them privately in like, hey, listen, hey, can I talk to you? Set up a meeting. Send them a text message. Don't try to communicate through text message either, because that's the worst way to communicate. But say, hey, listen, can we set up a meeting? I want to talk to you. And when you talk to them, voice your concern. But don't just voice your concern because that's you complaining, right? Okay. If you voice your concern, make sure you got solutions to back up, your concern. Hey, listen, this is happening. I think we should do this. This is happening. I think we should do things this way, right? So once you have that all laid out, it makes sense to approach, the person or the issue at hand. All right. Okay. After you didn't offered solutions, seek the inputs of others. You didn't went to the pastor, they don't agree with you, blah, 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 y'all didn't talk or whatever. You still feel some type of way. Again, seek more wisdom. Say, hey, listen, I addressed it this way. This happened. What should I do now? Okay. So you didn't did that. You didn't address it. You didn't sought out a solution. Be okay with accepting the fact there's a possibility that they ain't gonna change nothing. All right. And you can't be mad at that, right? There's a possibility that they ain't gonna change nothing. it is really important that you understand this, because if you can be okay with accepting there's a possibility they're not going to change, you can alleviate you getting in your feelings about it, because you can say, you know what, they're not going to change, so I'm going to remove myself from this situation. You ain't got to bash them. You ain't got to talk about them. You ain't got to say nothing crazy. You can walk away from this situation and be like, okay, this ain't for me. Like, I can move on. I don't have to be here, because this just doesn't serve, the idea that I think. This doesn't serve me. This doesn't serve what I think should be happening. So I'm going to move on and, bless that ministry. Hopefully they'll figure it out. Hopefully, I mean, it works for some people. It ain't work for me. Maybe it's just the me thing. Maybe I need to remove myself from this situation. Maybe I'm the problem. And remove yourself from the situation. And I'm telling you, let God deal with that. Let God, you not God. You don't have to deal with the situation. You don't have to deal with what's going on. Let God deal with that situation and just keep moving. I'm telling you, there's so much peace in moving on and letting God deal with it. God will vindicate you, especially if it's a situation where you get bashed or thrown under the bus because you voiced your opinion. God will vindicate you. You ain't got to fight no battles. And when I say God will vindicate you, I ain't talking about he going to make a spectacle of them people who rejected you. I'm saying that God will reassure you within yourself that you made the right choice, that you did what you were supposed to do. That don't mean that this church is going to fall apart now. That don't mean that all hell's going to break loose at that church. Because if you keep looking for that, you're going to be pissed off, because you're going to be looking at that church and they just prospering. They just prospering. They just growing. Membership growing. The worship team sound a little better. It's like, hey, man, hey, God, what's the hold up? Get them people. That ain't what it's about. It's really about you. In your heart, and this is how you, when I say challenge unhealthy systems, when you challenge these unhealthy systems and you realize that there's no change that's going to occur, you let those systems be. Let those systems be. Move on knowing that you did everything that you were supposed to do, okay? I'm going to wrap it up here, okay? Wrap it up here. So, yeah, I'm just going to chill. Listen, those of you in leadership, listen, if you are in an unhealthy system, it's completely okay for you to challenge that system, as long as your heart behind it is you want to see things done better in a better way. As long as your motive is I want things to be done my way, long as your motive isn't I'm right and they're wrong, it's okay to challenge that system, and you don't have to feel like you have a heart problem or something's going on, right? So I encourage you guys, challenge these unhealthy church systems. Do it in a respectful way. Follow the instructions that I gave, okay? I told you guys these are the steps to challenging these systems. Seek out prayer. Start there. Address the issue privately in a respectful way. Offer solutions. Don't just be complaining. Seek out the input of others, wise people, wise input, and be willing to accept that there's no change, and then move on, okay? So that's all I got for y'all. Later, I'm going to talk to the pastors who don't be open to these changes or these challenges from people. But thank y'all for watching. Continue. I'm going to get better. Like, the video quality is going to be better right now. I'm wounded, so I can't really do much. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I'll talk to y'all later.